Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Desiree Cassell. I'm an orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist specializing in women's health, aka pelvic floor. I'm a wife, mom of 3, foodie, lover of all things movement and nature, and I'm super passionate about educating, empowering, and supporting other women like you to find and maintain balance throughout all aspects of their lives, without pain, pressure, or peeing their pants. And this is the Balanced Momtality Podcast, where we will talk about all things pelvic floor, your core, and optimizing your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum recovery, providing you with the knowledge and tools so that you can feel like the strong, playful, and happy mom that you and your family deserve. Now let's get you out of those pads and back to loving movement. Fill up your water, pop in those AirPods, roll out your mat, and let's connect. Before we start today's episode, just a quick disclaimer that anything mentioned in this podcast is not meant to treat or diagnose any medical conditions. If you have any questions or concerns about your healthcare needs, please seek the care of your medical provider. This is also a safe space where we will be talking about very sensitive but important topics, such as issues with peeing and pooping, relationships, and even sex. So if you have littles around, probably a good idea to pop those AirPods in. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hey Mama, I'm so glad you're joining me for this episode on the podcast. I have so much good info for you guys today. I've been working on this podcast episode for a minute because I did some research and polling with my patients on my social media pages, on my local moms groups, birthing classes. I've been asking mamas all over the place what they wish they knew that they were never told about pregnancy, delivery, or postpartum. Because yes, there are lots of books out there, what to expect when you're expecting, and you can hear all these different stories and get a lot of common messages and threads, but there always seems to be those things that my patients come in, or friends or family end up saying, why did nobody tell me about this? And with that being said, I'm sure I am not going to cover all of them by any means, because I really am just listing off the feedback that I got, plus some things that I added in that I personally wish I knew and that I think all women should know. But again, this is not going to cover it all, because there are always those crazy stories of something happening that you're like, what? I didn't even know that could happen. And I still hear that. And so again, just take this with a grain of salt, but also just share with all your pregnant mamas so that they can be a little more informed than the rest of us were, because pregnancy is a lot. It's overwhelming to consume all this information. And I don't want any of this stuff to scare you, but it is just here to give you the dirty reality that pregnancy, delivery, and postpartum are, so that you know that you're not the only one and that there is support and help out there. With that being said, I'm also not going to have all of the answers, right? So this is more just, this is what can happen, not this is what you do about it. But I just want you to know that these are not normal things, and there is support, whether that's through a pelvic floor PT or a mental health counselor or your gynecologist, right? There is help out there, and doulas, right? So lots of support options, but make sure you're talking to your community and your tribe so that you can have multiple eyes on you, because when we're in the thick of it, it is hard to juggle all of the things and make sure we're doing the right things for our body and our baby. But with that being said, we're just going to jump right in to all the things that you wish you knew before pregnancy or delivery, or that we all wish we knew, but you get to find out beforehand. Lucky you. So with that being said, I am not going to put these in order. I am just reading the list as it comes. This isn't, worst to best or biggest thing to worst thing or anything like that. But one of the things that I thought was interesting that came up pretty commonly was that women were surprised that they didn't immediately bond with their baby and that it can take time. I was surprised at how many women mentioned this because I personally, I didn't have that. And that's not to put shame or guilt on any of the moms that did. And that was even one of the things a mom said, right? Like, the mom guilt that comes with not bonding with your baby right away makes it even worse. And man, my heart just feels for you, mama, because of course we want to have this big, strong, loving, unbreakable bond and connection with this human we just grew in our bodies. But let's be real, it's also a little human in spirit you're still getting to know. So let's just be patient with ourselves and also seek support if this is leading to extra anxiety or depression or stress. And also just know you are not alone. And many women don't feel this bond right away, and it can take time. So take the mom guilt out of it. Give yourself some credit. You are doing your best. And that's all there is to that one, right? Another really big one, and I think that this is going to be its own podcast episode at some point, but I really want to get a specialist on for that. I really want to get a mental health counselor, psychiatrist that specializes in postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, because I think this was probably the most mentioned thing that everyone wished they knew, because we do hear about postpartum depression, but I think what everyone was coming to me for was a lot of variations about it, right? Like, I didn't know postpartum depression isn't always just depression. It can also show as anger or irritation or sadness or anxiety. Like, it can show up in different ways. And if we just blanket it thinking that it's postpartum depression, those of us that didn't actually feel quote unquote depressed might feel like we don't actually fall within that category, and therefore don't seek the help that we could get, when really that anxiety and stress and intrusive thoughts, and for me, honestly, it was anger. I didn't realize it was postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety because it was during COVID. So hello, all of us were anxious. I also had a baby during COVID and was postpartum and isolated during COVID. So hello, postpartum depression and anxiety. But I really just attributed it to being stuck in the house with my family for so long, which probably was part of it, but I was getting ragey and I was already like 5 to 6 months postpartum. So I really did kind of lump myself out of the postpartum depression realm, which is so silly because this can show up later. That was another thing people mentioned, was they wish that they knew that it could show up a few months, even up to a year after having your baby. It's not something that happens immediately or even within the first few weeks. This can be something that does happen a few months out. So it can be delayed and it can look differently and it can be very debilitating. So again, know that if you are just not feeling good, whether it's irritability or anger or sadness or depression and feeling meh, seek help and support, because there's so many resources out for that. And I will add to that I had a lot of people mention how, they were warned that hormones are crazy and that this is a big time where you might feel a lot of emotions and feelings and give it time to settle. But a lot of people were really trying to emphasize the fact that it was so bad they couldn't sleep. They couldn't function and they couldn't even take pictures of their kids. They had no joy and it was just all consuming. And they really felt that anxiety and intrusive thoughts, which were so surprising, and to a point of debilitation where they didn't even really want to sleep because they were afraid their baby was going to choke or stop breathing. They didn't want to leave the house because of the stress that put on them with the baby and their safety and everything else. And again, that can, when it's taking away your joy, taking away your function, taking away your sleep, this is a problem. And one of the big things that because again, especially not personally recognizing that I ever dealt with this, I didn't ever really seek support. So before ever having, a professional on the show, which I will, I was really just reaching back to these women like, well, what did you do? What was your support? What helped? And a big common thread was getting more sleep. And so it might seem like, well, hey, Des, like you're saying that my anxiety is so bad I can't sleep, that's a problem. So how am I going to fix it if I can't sleep? Like, what the heck? But
This is where we get support, like a postpartum doula or a mother or your mother-in-law or your spouse or someone where you can know that there are eyes on baby and you can then detach and go sleep, where you're not worried and wondering what's happening and letting your brain go a mile a minute. Having someone there that you trust and know has their eyes on baby so you can just catch up on sleep is so important. Even if you don't have PPD or any form of anxiety, but you're just low energy or you're in pain or maybe you're feeling good. Let's be real. You are healing and sleep is so crucial, especially because you're not getting enough. Even if you feel like you slept decent that night and it was a quote unquote good night, if you've got a baby that's waking you up and interrupting your sleep, even every few hours, that is not good quality sleep. So we need to be really proactive and make sure we have a good fail-safe plan for getting good sleep, whether that's working it out with your partner to be on shifts, whether that's getting a postpartum doula, having grandma come and hang out with the baby, whatever it is, make it happen, because that is what will sneak up on you. And then you'll turn around, it'll be months, and you will feel like a totally different person and not know that your personality just got hijacked from lack of sleep, increasing the anxiety and the intrusive thoughts and changing your personality to be more irritable and angry, right? Like, let's just avoid that and put some intention into your sleep and also doing things that fill your cup up with joy. And when it comes to not bonding with your baby, like maybe we plan some activities that can help us bond with baby, right? So I think these are all great things. And again, not in any order here. So another thing that was brought up was someone said, I was told that how quote unquote natural and normal birth and breastfeeding was, right? Like how millions of women do it. Your body just knows how to do it. Don't stress about it. But then this poor mom ended up in a situation where she had to have a C-section. Baby was in the NICU. She ultimately, her milk didn't come in. They needed to bottle feed. And then by the time it was time to breastfeed, she just couldn't make it happen. Her body didn't adapt right. She didn't have the right stimuli to get that milk to come in. And ultimately it didn't. And this is unfortunately a story I hear all the time. The stress and the struggle around bottle feeding and formula feeding and breastfeeding, right? We have put so much pressure on moms to do the quote unquote right thing. But let's be real, guys. The right thing is what's best for you and baby. And what's best for you and baby is that you are fed, healthy, and happy. It does not matter how you are fed, right? If that is a bottle, if that is breastfeeding, like it does not matter. Let's stop giving women so much guilt and shame and pressure to do things one way or the other. Maybe they simply want to do formula. Who cares? Maybe they had no desire to breastfeed. Who cares? But especially for the women who really, really desired to breastfeed and then ultimately didn't get that journey or struggled with it. I hear too many times women just struggling and being so stressed. They're not sleeping well because feeding isn't going well. So baby isn't sleeping well. And it's this vicious cycle where no one's getting sleep. Baby's not getting fed. So they're angry and not sleeping well. It increases your stress. And then people say, well, just relax and it will come out. Like that helps. And it doesn't. It just makes moms more stressed out. And then they finally give it up and start going to formula feeding. And ta-da, baby's mood changes. Baby sleeps well. Mom starts sleeping well. She feels like a whole new woman. And she wishes she chose to do it sooner, but feels guilty for even doing it still. And it's just like, no, we need to take that away. We need to take away the stress, the pressure, the guilt. Do what you need to do. Like there is no shame in how you deliver, whether it's a C-section or vaginal. There is no shame in how you feed your baby, whether it's bottle formula or bottle pumped breast milk or straight from the breast, right? Like no shame, mama. And know that I think that's something else to know, right? Not every woman has breastfeeding come so easily. It can be very, very, very challenging and stressful. And that's where, yes, there are resources like lactation consultants and people that can really help guide you and give you more tools and helps troubleshoot with you so that if that is really a goal, hopefully you can meet it. But hopefully you also have the support and compassion for if it's not working and feeling like it's okay to step away from that. Because just like in delivery, right? We talk about how it's great to have the idea of how you want birth to go, but it's also so important to kind of have no plan at all because we need to go in it with an open mind. Who knows how it's going to go? And that's kind of how postpartum is. Like, who knows? Is your baby going to breastfeed well? Maybe not. Maybe they're going to take to the bottle well, and we do need to be flexible with both our bodies and the baby and your mental health, even if baby is latching, they're feeding well, but maybe you're not bonding well and you're actually getting the ick and you're feeling touched out and resentful every time you breastfeed. This is another time where I say, let it go. Let it go, right? We need to let that pressure and high expectation go. That was an old idea. It isn't working anymore, and it's time to move on. So again, that could probably be its own episode, and I'm going to try not to ramble on all of these too long. But I just want you guys to really feel like you're not broken. You're not doing anything wrong. You're doing an amazing job by making the best choice for you and your baby. And that's something to be proud of. So with that being said, another comment was how this person, and I got a few of these, how they wish that they knew that everyone could get diastasis recti and that they should be checking for it or how they could check postpartum, right? And so I do think this one's really important. With that being said, I'll clarify 90 to 100% of women do end up with some level of diastasis recti, but this is what we consider normal, meaning as baby is growing in the abdomen, we get some normal separation between the two rectus abdominis muscles, causing a gap in the midline of our abdomen. And that is a normal physiological change for baby to grow. Our body was built to do that. But when it starts to get to what we call a diagnosed issue, diastasis recti, this is when pressures are going places they shouldn't, right? Maybe it's not an equal pressure exchange. So one part of that separation starts to get thinned out and can even cause, like I have, an umbilical hernia where that tissue fully tore. And now it's like a weak space in my core where I do feel my intestines kind of pop through and I have to push them back in. This happened before I knew what I knew now, guys. Don't go do sit-ups after you have a baby 6 weeks out. Let me just tell you that much, because I went to a Pilates class postpartum, thought I was doing all the right things, and caused my diastasis and ultimately a hernia. So yes, we do want to screen for diastasis, and this can look like coning or bulging or doming in the abdomen. I know for me, it looked like there was an alien coming out of my stomach when I was in the shower washing my hair, and I looked down and I was like, oh my gosh, what is coming out of my belly? And that was too much pressure. So we really do look at how are we managing pressure? How are we bracing? How are we breathing to manage that pressure through the core system equally and effectively and not shove it into one space, ultimately causing pelvic organ prolapse or a hernia or diastasis recti. And then we should be checking all women for this postpartum because you might not have it during pregnancy, but maybe you slouched too much postpartum and that put too much pressure. And now we're seeing the actual diastasis. Or maybe you went back to exercise too early, or you started trying to sit up out of bed again postpartum, right? We can cause a lot of these issues in the postpartum phase, not even just during pregnancy. But I think it is crucial to know that diastasis or DRA exists and that we can screen for it. And the other thing that was mentioned, which I think is just so good, and I'm so glad someone mentioned it because if not, I was going to mention it, but I wish that I knew, and so did a few women that I polled, that the 6-week postpartum check is a joke. Let's just call it what it is. Like, it's a joke. They're getting you in there to see, yes, okay, let's Let's give them some credit. They're making sure you're feeling good. They're making sure you're not in pain. They're making sure that you're not bleeding anymore, or if so, that it's a normal amount based on how your delivery experience was. They're making sure there's no infection, no big red flags, right? Yes, very, very important. But let me tell you, they are not doing what you think they're doing, meaning, like me and like most of you, when we go to that 6-week check, we are kind of assuming you are, quote unquote, clearing my body for exercise, right? We call it that clearance checkup. They even usually say, you're all good to resume activity as normal, you're cleared. But this can be such a disservice because then women go, oh, cool, I'm cleared. And they start running. They start going to the HIIT class again. They start getting into exercise way too quickly. And then again, cause issues. So we really do need to be aware that that 6-week check is not doing what we think it is. Many women aren't even getting an internal assessment at that 6-week check. And we really aren't getting any awareness of, do we have prolapse now? How bad is the tears? Are we in a super tight contraction constantly, or is our pelvic floor blown out and not turning on at all? Do we have trigger points? Are we weak in our pelvic floor? How is our abdomen and our whole core system working together and coming together after delivery, right? These are things that me as a pelvic floor PT looks at, but not what a gynecologist looks at. Even if they're going internal, they're checking for maybe prolapse. If there was a really obvious one, they would probably tell you, but I'll tell you now that I know how to thoroughly check prolapse, I never got a thorough assessment. Maybe they were in there with their finger and they said squeeze, and if they felt a contraction, they're like, you're good to go. But that is such a blip in our actual reality of the health of our pelvic floor and our core state. We really need to look at the whole system, and I think every woman should get a 6-week clearance from a pelvic floor PT that does internal work, because that's the only way you get the information that we actually all want, right? Like, we want to know, is it safe for me to even pick up my baby? Because maybe that weight is even too much for me right now. Or maybe I'm strong enough I could start working out and lifting weights again. But we need to know, because if you don't do enough, we can be in trouble. And if you do too much, we can be in trouble. So we really do need to advocate for ourselves and know that in many states, especially the state I'm in New Mexico, we are direct access, which means you do not need a referral. You can go to a pelvic PT and just show up, right? Now, this isn't the same for all states, so you might call your pelvic PT local to you and see. But I do think that this is something that we all need to get for sure. So again, I think I even have an episode on the 6-week postpartum check. So check that out if you are curious, because this is something I am so passionate about. All right, I loved this one. This patient said that they wish they knew more about how much the fear, tension, and pain cycle plays a role in delivery and how it can make childbirth so much harder. And so with that being said, that really does emphasize how crucial and important relaxation and breath work is, and why we do the mind body work that we do, especially in my Restore program on my Pelvic Floor Core and More app. We're really talking about relaxing, connecting, feeling that space, because especially if it's a little tender, maybe intercourse is even a little uncomfortable, so you've just disconnected from that space. You don't want anything to think about that space now, but then you go and push out a baby and your pelvic floor all of a sudden feels this super intense pressure in that space. Your body's going to tighten up, right? That is the fear, tension, pain cycle. If we have fear, we tighten. So if we're even, right, maybe something just hurts, we start to get the real contractions, not the little Braxton Hicks or those low-level menstrual contractions. No, we start to get those real contractions. The fear kicks in. It's like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? And there's no way out of it but through, right? And so that can cause fear. Every time you start to feel the contraction, you're like, oh no, here comes another one. And it makes you tighten. It makes you clench your hands. Maybe you're even squeezing your partner's hand. Your shoulders are elevating, your jaw's clenching, and that tension is also going down to the pelvic floor. So now you're clenching the space that the baby is supposed to come through. No wonder some women don't progress very well. We have to be able to check in with that pelvic floor, check in with our safety space, and have these practices already in place where we can connect to that tension and pressure and pain and go, release, which is why I actually tell all of my pregnant mamas to avoid squeezing their partner's hands, to avoid holding on to anything tight, and to have their partners looking out for tension, shaking their shoulders out, tapping their jaw if they're clenching, letting their partners fall into them during a contraction so they're not even holding themselves up, right? The goal is to be a loose, limp noodle, and it sounds so much easier said than done, and it is, but the more we practice it, especially in situations that are a little tender or uncomfortable, like perineal massage or some tissue desensitization work, this can start to connect the brain and the body where, okay, I feel this pressure, but I can relax here and I am safe and I am okay. And then you can connect that pelvic floor to just get out of the way so that then you can actually allow baby to come through that birth canal without a literal wall holding it in place. And this is where we also get awareness of how to push baby out without forcefully creating tension and contracting the pelvic floor. We're getting a reduction in pushing time, a reduction in tearing time or tearing risk. And so again, the fear, tension, pain cycle is really, really an issue, and really prioritizing relaxation and calming techniques and strategies, and even just taking the hand squeeze out can be a game changer for how your babies show up for you. My first pregnancy, I was squeezing my husband's hand, and we had a pretty typical and normal delivery experience. But compared to the last two, where I just went limp in my husband's hands, the pushing time was boom, like that. I had no tearing. I just connected, let baby fall through, turned my pelvic floor off. Such a game changer. Alrighty, so there is also some feedback on how it really is not a one size fits all, right? With that healing timeline and bouncing back, so many people, especially after that 6-week checkup, really think that they are cleared. But a lot of women might already or still feel like they're in a lot of pain or discomfort at that 6-week mark. And this can be frustrating because you might be feeling like, what the heck? I should be further along by now. I should be getting cleared today. And remember, that's not always the case, especially if you had a C-section. This time of feeling discomfort and pain and bloating is a little longer with a C-section than it is with a vaginal delivery. And with that being said, C-section recovery is no easy walk in the park. So make sure you're not opting for a elective C-section because you think it will be easier or save your pelvic floor, because it does neither of those things. The recovery is way more intense with a C-section. Let's think about it. You just cut through 7 layers of abdominal tissue and now your whole core got cut open versus a tissue that is meant to stretch and open, recovering naturally and normally from a process it is normally meant to do, right? And so thinking about that recovery time and that bounce back time, which I also just hate the bounce back culture. Once postpartum, always postpartum. You're never really going to bounce back. But I will say, and this was something else that people were saying, is they wish they knew that postpartum is long, like a year. Your body is not back to what it was strength-wise, hormone-wise, metabolism-wise for a year. We need to be patient with your body. Remember, it took almost a year to grow a human. It is going to take almost a year to recover. That doesn't mean you won't be working out and feeling good for a year, but it might mean it takes a year before you really feel confident and like and connect with your body again, and that things are balancing out. Maybe your cycles are returning and your hormones are feeling normal again. But it does take time. And even if you had a really healthy, normal recovery, even running. I don't want you running till about at least 20 weeks postpartum. And that's if we've done the rehab beforehand to get you strong enough to do that, right? So it takes time. We are not just getting cleared at 6 weeks and going and running. We are being patient and allowing our body to heal and not getting frustrated with that. All right. Something else that I got told was how we really need to let go of our birth plans, right? Like we go with this plan and we can be so proud of it, but really depending on your delivery experience and when you get there or where you end up delivering, that might all go out the window. And so while we do the best to plan, we also have to plan for everything to go wrong. And so I think that that's something to, again, just be aware of. I hear the most trauma from mamas when they are coming back in with their birth plan just not going as planned. And they really are trying to force that plan and feeling like it's getting taken from them and they're out of control. So I think that just allowing some flexibility and really advocating for yourself and having some say in that can be very helpful in just how your mind and body processes that whole birthing experience. Another thing someone said, which I think is great, because let's be real, like everyone's worried about our clothes fitting after. But everyone said, not everyone, but this lady said, your clothes might not fit you. They might or they might not. And this lady said she wished she knew that because she threw away all of her fun clothes, but she didn't get any clothes. After that, she just was assuming she'd still be in her maternity clothes when really she was able to fit into that previous style, but she already got rid of it all. So she didn't have anything that felt like her, and she felt like she had lost her identity, which I thought was so interesting and so valid, right? Like how many of us feel that way through motherhood, especially postpartum, whether it's our clothes don't fit, our body doesn't move or look the way that it used to, we don't get to do the things that we want to, right? Like losing our identity is a huge thing, which is why I think that keeping things in your routine that fill your cup up and bring you joy is so crucial, because motherhood will become all consuming. And if you don't prioritize that time to do what brings you joy and really get that time in, then you might be really frustrated and swimming in anxiety and things like that afterwards. So hold on to those clothes just in case they fit. But on that note, I'll tell you, mine never fit afterwards. I kept mine. I was the other one who kept mine, hoping to fit into them. And even a year later, never did. Why? Because I was a stick when I got pregnant with my first one, and then my hips popped out. So my hips never went back in. Now, I was able to fit into my clothes from my other pregnancies because my hips were already popped out. And so that didn't change anymore, but it also did take time. It can take up to a year to get back into those clothes, and that's if you're doing the right thing. So don't get caught up in comparison culture and seeing all these mamas on social media bouncing back and putting their clothes on and putting the bikini on at 8 weeks and looking great. Good for them, but that is not how we all roll. I am covered in stretch marks and saggy skin, and at this point, they are my badges of honor, and I think that that is totally fine. But it's taken me a long time to get to that self-love place. So just keep an eye on those things that bring you joy. And also, again, give your body time and grace. I love this one. One of my patients posted this one. And so I'm glad because I would have said it. But she said, I wish I knew how PT is essential after childbirth and even before, especially for the physical and mental well-being and healing and preparing for birth and just having a functional body. No doctor told them that they needed it before or after, and she just got put on bed rest and didn't do anything. And now she just ended up coming to me with so much pain and weakness when really we could have attacked so much of that during pregnancy. So again, pelvic PT is here not only for postpartum recovery, but to help get you prepared and ready for the big delivery, to make you feel confident in what that early postpartum should look like, and to keep you active and strong during pregnancy, and to help guide that scariness and decision fatigue of, can I do this exercise? Can I not? Should I go on this trip? Should I not? Should I lay this way? Should I not? not? What should I prioritize, right? There are so many things and it can be very overwhelming. And that is what I am here for. So just make sure you've got a great support team where we're looking at mental health, physical health, nutrition, right? There are support and resources out there for you. All right. Another good one is how important perineal massage is, especially for recovery and reducing tears, which I'm a huge fan. We talk about perineal massage and tissue desensitization, and it can be so helpful and be a game changer for reducing that risk of tearing, which ultimately is what becomes the most uncomfortable a lot of times, is that healing scar and wound. So perineal massage is a great thing to do. Another thing was just that pregnancy is hard, right? Like this is hard and we are growing a human. So give yourself time and grace as everything is adjusting. I think this is so beautiful. And it is. It's okay to have foggy days. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to not show up how you want. You are growing a human. Sleep and nap and rest. And when you're feeling good, take advantage. And that's great. And we do what we can. Another thing that I'll mention, and someone did say this, which I think is great, is that they do give you what we call a fundal massage after the delivery. I had no idea that this was a thing, but they basically, right after you push out the baby, come to your stomach and do a really intense massage, and it hurts so bad. I was like, get off of me. What are you doing? The pressure was so intense, but they're trying to push out any blood clots, make sure nothing's left internally. But wow, did it take me by surprise? And enough so that with my second and third, I actually did it myself. I requested to be able to do it myself. They did check to make sure I was giving enough pressure, but I felt like doing it myself, I was able to just be more calm in my body. I knew how much pressure I would give, and I didn't just have someone with zero awareness or care just pounding on my abdomen after I just pushed out a baby. So that was very shocking to me. I also myself was not prepared for how painful the first pee and poop can be. And it doesn't have to be, it isn't always painful, but say you have a tear, you end up with a tear around the urethra. That pee might burn and feel like glass way more than you're prepared for. Use that peri bottle, fill it with warm water, squirt it on the vulva while you are peeing that first pee, and then thank me later. And then also that first poop, take the stool softeners. Take the stool softeners. I'm not going to say it again. And especially if you had a C-section, right? You are also on painkillers, which are going to back you up even more, but we want zero straining on the pelvic floor. And that can be very, very hard to do when things are a little backed up and swollen. So take the stool softeners, no shame, lots of water, breathe that puppy out, and hopefully you can prevent any extra issues with hemorrhoids or prolapse or things like that. But again, I'm sure there are so many more things that we wish we knew, and I'll probably do a part 2 on this one, but I just wanted to get this out there because I thought it was so fun to see all the different feedback. I got so many inputs on certain things that I mentioned in this show that I will probably make their own episode just because there was such a hit on those topics. But I hope this does just give you a little bit more insight on really the dirty, rough reality of pregnancy and delivery and postpartum and what it can look like. But it is also beautiful, especially if you have a great support system and tribe. And if you don't, please join mine. You're already here, so you're part of my tribe and I want to be part of yours. Go follow my free support group on Facebook. It is private, where you can ask questions, get feedback, help build each other up, the Balanced Momtality Wellness and Support. And if you also want some more actual lessons and breathwork exercises, download my app. It is free, Pelvic Floor Core and More. It is a little teal pelvic icon, and it has a masterclass in there for Pelvic Floor 101, breathwork exercise, tracking abilities. It is so great, and I'm so excited about it. So go check it out, download it, share it with your friends, and as always, share this episode with any other mamas you think will benefit. And I can't wait to see you here next week. I have such a special guest coming on the show, so stay tuned.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you've got so many other important things going on, but I hope it was helpful and you leave here with some tools to help you in your healing journey. And I just want to ask you, if you have found this helpful, to please leave a review on iTunes. Scroll down to the bottom of my podcast page and leave that 5-star review so it can help other women see this information. And also, if you want to be a part of my community of amazing women trying to balance all the things, great tips and insight and sharing stories and just motivating each other along the way, feel free to join my Facebook group, The Balanced Momtality, Wellness and Support. I hope to see you here next time on the Balanced Momtality Podcast.